hit the nail on the head a while ago. He said there was a magnet of people that will hire illegals, and you are number one on that list, sir. And people need to understand that. You're one of the problems, Mitt.
I think we've been down that road.
Yeah, I think we've been down that road sufficiently. It sounds like the audience agrees with me.
We're continuing on immigration. We have a question in the audience.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to ask my question. We have 50 million Latinos, and not all of us are illegal. What is the message from you guys to our Latino community?
Speaker Gingrich? Well, President Obama got, I think, 67% of the Latino vote last time around.
Look, I think that there's a very clear message to Americans of all backgrounds. Latinos, Korean Americans, Vietnamese Americans. There are hundreds of different groups who come to America. And as Governor Romney said, I think anybody who understands America has to be proud of our record as the country which has been the most open in history to legal immigration. But the truth is, most Latinos in the United States aren't immigrants. Most Latinos in the United States now have been born in the United States. And the fact is they want virtually exactly what everyone else wants. They want an economy that's growing. They want a job that has take-home pay. They want an access to health insurance that they can afford. They want a chance to get educated that actually is useful and worthwhile. They want to be able to know that their family is going to grow up in safety, and they want to have a chance that their country is going to work to give their children and their grandchildren a better future. I think we have to have the same message for every American of every ethnic background, that we want to make America work again, and you'll know it's working because you will have a job and you'll have a chance to take care of your family.
Congressman Paul, Congressman Paul, there are some Latino voters who believe that some of these strong anti-immigration laws, anti-illegal immigration laws, are actually anti-Latino laws. What do you say to them?
Well, I think some people do believe that. I think offense is symbolic of that, and I can understand why somebody might look at that. But when we approach this immigration problem, we should look at the incentives, and that are the mandates from the federal government saying that you must educate and must give them free education. You have to remove these incentives, but I don't think the answer is a fence whatsoever. But in order to attract Latino votes, I think, too long, this country has always put people in groups. They penalize people because they're in groups, and then they reward people because they're in groups. But following up on what Newt was saying, we need a healthy economy. We wouldn't be talking about this. We need to see everybody as an individual. And to me, seeing everybody as an individual means their liberties are protected as individuals, and they are treated that way, and they're never penalized that way. So if you have a free and prosperous society, all of a sudden this group mentality melts away. As long as there's no abuse, one place where there's still a lot of discrimination in this country is in our court systems, and I think the minorities come up with a shorthand in our court system.
Herman Cain, the 14th Amendment allows that anybody born in the United States is an American citizen. Should that change?
I want to go back and answer this question first, okay? And that is, my message to Latinos, blacks, whites, and all Americans is that we must first start with significantly boosting this economy, which is on life support. This is why I have put forth a very bold plan, and I'm not afraid to try and sell it to the American people. I'm not afraid to fight for it when I become president of the United States of America. So that's my message. If we have this economy growing, people will be able to take care of their families and go after their American dream. And until we boost this economy, all of us are going to suffer for a long time.
Then let me ask the question to Governor Perry. Governor Perry, the 14th Amendment allows anybody, a child of illegal immigrants who's born here, is automatically American citizen. Should that change?
Well, let me address Herman's issue that
Actually, I'd rather you ask the question, answer that question.
I understand that. You get to ask the questions, and I get to answer like I want to. But, and Herman talked about...
That's actually a response. That's not an answer.
The issue of how we get this country back working. And truly, the plan that I laid out last week, where we talk about the energy industry and this treasure trove that we have under this country. And we need to recognize that the administration that we have today is blocking mining that could be going on in the state of Nevada. I talked to Brian Sandoval before I came in here today. You have an administration that is killing jobs because they want to move us to a green energy. You have a Secretary of Energy who has basically said he wants to see gas prices up close to the European model. That we want to, the president himself said electricity rates are necessarily going to skyrocket. That's what we've got to stop. That's the reason we've got to have a president of the United States that understands that you get Americans working, and it addresses these issues that we have in this country. And the fastest way to do it is to open up these federal lands, to pull back those regulations, and get America working again.
To the question on the 14th Amendment, do you support repealing the 14th Amendment?
No.
No, you do not.
I do not.
Congresswoman Bachmann, do you support it?
I think there's a very real issue with magnets in this country, and I think the issue that you're referring to is the issue of anchor babies. And that's an issue that I was just in Arizona this last weekend, and the state is very concerned because when someone comes illegally across the border, specifically for the purpose of utilizing American resources to have a baby here, then all of the welfare benefits then attach to that baby. This is an issue that we don't have to deal with the Constitution. This is an issue that we can deal with legislatively, and there are a lot of Americans that would like us to deal with this issue of anchor babies legislatively.
Senator Santorum?
Yeah, I'd like to address the issue that the gentleman brought up, which is what are we going to say to the Latino community? And not one person here mentioned the issue of family, faith, marriage. This is a community that is a faith-filled community, that family is at the center of that community. I disagree in some respects with Congressman Paul, who says, the country's founded on the individual. The basic building block of a society is not the individual, it's the family. It's the basic unit of society. And the Latino community understands that. They understand the importance of faith and marriage. They understand that bond that builds that solid foundation and that inculcation of faith and religious freedom. And I think the Latino community knows that's at stake in this country. There's a lot going on right now that's eroding our religious freedom, that's eroding the traditional values of marriage and family. And there's one candidate up here who consistently sounds that theme. Look, I'm for jobs too. I've got an economic plan. I agree with everything that's been said. But we keep running roughshod over the fact that the family in America and faith in America is being crushed by the courts and by our government, and someone has to stand up and fight for those instances.
Congressman Paul, you were referenced directly, 30 seconds.
Well, I would like to explain that rights don't come in bunches. Rights come as individuals. They come from a God, and they come as each individual has a right to life and liberty. But I might add about the border control and the Latino vote is we lack resources there. I think we should have more border guards on and a more orderly transition and run it much better. But where are our resources? We worry more about the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We need to bring the guard units home and the units back here so we can have more personnel on our borders.
We have a question in the audience.
My question for you is, do you support opening the National Nuclear Repository at Yucca Mountain?
Speaker Gingrich, let's start with you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Look, we worked on this when I was Speaker. I think that it has to be looked at scientifically. But I think at some point we have to find a safe method of taking care of nuclear waste. And today, because this has been caught up in a political fight, we have small units of nuclear waste all over this country in a way that is vastly more dangerous to the United States than finding a method of keeping it in a very, very deep place that would be able to sustain 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 years of geological safety.
Is Yucca Mountain that place?
I'm not a scientist. Yucca Mountain certainly was picked by the scientific community as one of the safest places in the United States. It has always had very deep opposition here in Nevada.
You were for opening it in Congress, right? When you're in Congress, you were
When I was in Congress, frankly, I worked with the Nevada delegation to make sure that there was time for scientific studies. But we have to find some method of finding a very geologically stable place, and most geologists believe that, in fact, Yucca Mountain is that.
Congressman Paul, you oppose this.
Yes, I've opposed this. We've had votes in the Congress. There was a time when I voted with two other individuals, the two congressmen from Nevada. And I approach it from a states' rights position. What right does 49 states have to punish one state and say, we're going to put our garbage in your state? I think that's wrong. But I think it's very serious. I think it's very serious, but quite frankly, the government shouldn't be in the business of subsidizing any form of energy, and nuclear energy, I think, is a good source of energy, but they still get subsidies. Then they assume this responsibility. Then we as politicians and the bureaucrats get involved in this, and then we get involved with which state's going to get stuck with the garbage. So I would say the more the free market handles this, and the more you deal with property rights and no subsidies to any form of energy, the easier this problem would be solved.
Governor Romney, where do you stand on this?
Congressman Paul was right on that. I don't always agree with him, but I do on that. The idea that 49 states can tell Nevada we want to give you our nuclear waste doesn't make a lot of sense. I think the people of Nevada ought to have the final say as to whether they want that. And my guess is that for them to say yes to something like that, someone's going to have to offer them a pretty good deal, as opposed to having the federal government jam it down their throat. And by the way, if Nevada says, look, we don't want it, then let other states make bids and say, hey, look, we'll take it. Here's a geological site that we've evaluated. Here's the compensation we want for taking it. We want you electric companies around the country that are using nuclear fuel to compensate us a certain amount per kilowatt hour, a certain amount per ton of the stuff that comes. Let the free market work. And on that basis, the places that are geologically safe, according to science, and where the people say the deal's a good one, will decide where we put this stuff. That's the right course for America.
Governor Perry?
You know, from time to time, Mitt and I don't agree, but on this one, he's hit the nail right on the head. And I'll just add that when you think about France, who gets over 70% of their energy from nuclear power, the idea that they deal with this issue, that their glassification and that the innovation, and Congressman Paul, you're correct when it comes to allowing the states to compete with each other. That is the answer to this. We need to have a discussion in this country about our 10th Amendment and the appropriateness of it as it's been eroded by Washington, D.C. for all these many years, whether it's health care, whether it's education, or whether it's dealing with energy. We don't need to be subsidizing energy in any form or fashion. Allow the states to make the decision, and some state out there will see the economic issue, and they will have it in their state.
We're going to move on to an issue very important here in the state of Nevada and throughout the West. We have a question from the hall.
Yeah, my question is, those of us who own property here in Nevada have been devastated by the real estate bubble. What would you do as president to help fix the overall problem of real estate and foreclosures in America?